Okay. So you know how on this show we like to take a bunch of stuff and like really get to the bottom of it all.
Yeah, yeah. Get the nuggets of gold.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We take these sources
Yeah.
and we pull out all the good stuff for you so you don't have to do it all yourself.
I like to think we're saving people some time,
Absolutely.
so they don't have to wade through all this stuff.
Well, this time
Yeah.
we've got kind of a strange pairing for you.
Yeah, we do. Bit of an odd couple.
A little bit.
Yeah.
So we've got these case overviews from counterintelligence ABCIQ cases.
Okay, so like some pretty
Yeah.
pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah, just like kind of classified
Yeah.
briefings.
Yeah, some real inside baseball.
Yeah, and then on top of that, we're throwing in this transcript from a question period leaders debate.
Okay, so we're going from like covert ops to like
Yeah.
the political arena.
Exactly. So we're kind of jumping all over the place.
It's a bit of a whiplash.
But that's kind of the fun of it.
It is.
Right.
Yeah, and I think the idea here is to like see what happens when you put these two things together.
Yeah.
Like what kind of questions come up?
Exactly. Because on the surface, they seem totally different.
Right, they do.
But we're going to find out if they're really...
Yeah, are there actually
so-
any threads, any common themes that run through both?
Yeah, like those underlying currents.
Exactly, the stuff that's kind of bubbling beneath the surface.
Okay, so to give you an idea
Yeah.
of just how broad this
Yeah.
is going to get,
Yeah.
we're talking about,
Buckle up.
we're talking about international security and tech and like big questions about how the world works.
Oh, yeah, those big philosophical questions, the meaning of life, the universe, and everything.
Well, maybe not that big.
Okay, maybe not that big, but like how we govern ourselves,
Right.
what we value as a society.
Yeah.
What even is freedom,
So we're going to put these two worlds together and see what happens.
It's going to be a wild ride.
Okay, so let's start with these ABCIQ cases.
All right, let's dive in.
So right off the bat,
Yeah.
there's this period between May and September 2020 where ABCIQ had all these problems
Really?
with their technology,
Oh, wow.
like their phones, their laptops.
Yeah.
They couldn't even access their secure systems.
Like a total tech meltdown.
It's kind of crazy to think about,
Yeah,
an organization like that.
Right, with all their resources, all their expertise.
Yeah, and they're getting taken down by something that seems so basic.
I mean, it just goes to show, in this day and age,
Yeah.
you're only as strong as your weakest link.
And in this case, the weakest link was technology.
Yeah, technology can be a double-edged sword.
Absolutely.
It can be a powerful tool, but it can also be a major vulnerability.
And this really highlights that.
Yeah, like this isn't just a technical glitch.
Yeah.
This is a fundamental security risk.
Exactly. And it's something that everyone needs to be aware of.
Yeah, individuals, businesses, governments.
We're also reliant on technology now.
Right, and that makes us all vulnerable.
So what can we do about it?
Well, I think the key is vigilance.
Okay.
We can't just assume that our systems are secure.
Right.
We have to be constantly monitoring for threats.
Okay. So constant monitoring.
Yeah, and then having robust recovery plans in place.
Okay. So if something does happen,
Yeah, you need to be able to bounce back quickly.
so that's like the big takeaway from this whole tech meltdown thing.
Exactly.
Okay. So let's get into some of these specific cases.
All right, let's see what they were dealing with.
So there's this UN private contractor
Roche.
stranded at sea
Oh, wow.
during COVID.
Talk about bad timing.
Right.
Yeah.
And they even give us the coordinates in this document.
Really?
Yeah. So 25.697231, 53.60471.
Let me see if I can pull that up on my phone.
Yeah, it puts them right in the Persian Gulf.
Oh, wow. Right in the middle of everything.
So this person is stuck on a vessel.
Yeah.
Can't get off. No isolation.
So they're like right in the thick of it.
Totally.
Yeah.
And they're having trouble accessing medical and mental health support.
Oh, man, that's tough.
And on top of that, the data speeds are so slow that they can't even do basic identity checks.
So they're like cut off from the world.
Yeah, it's like all these global events
Ugh.
just kind of converged
Yeah.
to make this person's situation
Yeah.
so much worse.
It's like a perfect storm of bad luck.
It really is.
Yeah.
And, this whole thing about not being able to confirm their identity remotely,
Right.
it kind of makes you think
It does.
about all the assumptions we make about technology.
Yeah, like we just assume that we can always connect with anyone anywhere,
Yeah,
but that's not always the case.
especially in a crisis
Right.
when you need it the most.
Exactly.
So this case is like a real wake-up call.
yeah,
It's like, okay, we need to have backup plans.
right. We can't just rely on technology to always work perfectly.
And it's not just about the technology itself.
Yeah.
about the systems we have in place.
Yeah, like how do we handle these situations when technology fails us?
Exactly, because it's going to happen.
It is.
So we need to be prepared.
Absolutely.
Okay, so there's even more to this case.
Oh, there is.
Yeah. So they describe the contractor's voice as
Yeah.
Nigerian African descent,
Okay.
but then they say that it didn't really match typical cultural and linguistic patterns.
That's interesting.
Right. And then you've got the U.S. passport.
Okay.
And they say there might be other passports, but they couldn't confirm those.
So there's some mystery there? Like
Yeah.
maybe they're using an alias,
No.
or maybe they have dual citizenship?
Exactly. And then there's this detail about two $150 scratch cards.
What were those for?
That's a good question.
I have no idea.
It's not really clear from the document, but it's just another one of those details that makes you think.
It does.
There's more to this story than meets the eye.
Yeah, it's like we're only seeing a small piece of the puzzle. And I think what's also interesting here is ABCIQ's involvement. Like, they actually went beyond their usual mandate.
What do you mean?
Well, they usually only provide support for diplomatic missions.
Okay.
But in this case, they were helping out this private contractor.
Oh, wow. So they were really going above and beyond.
They were.
Why do you think they did that?
Well, I think it shows that they recognized the severity of the situation.
Okay.
You know, this wasn't just some routine request for assistance.
Right.
This was a real crisis.
Yeah.
And I think they felt a sense of responsibility to help.
Okay, so it was like a humanitarian thing?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so the document says that this person's LinkedIn was active in February 2021.
Okay, so it sounds like they made it back safe.
That's what it seems like.
And it's good to hear.
But then right after that, they mentioned the lack of mental and emotional health aid to leaders on board vessels.
Oh, wow.
And that's kind of a sobering thought.
It is.
You know, we focus so much on physical security. But what about the mental and emotional well-being of these people?
Especially in these high-stress environments.
Yeah, they're out there.
Yeah.
They're isolated.
Right.
They're dealing with all kinds of pressure.
It's a tough job.
It is.
And I think we often forget about the human toll that it takes.
Exactly. And this case really highlights that.
It does.
Okay, so moving on to the second case.
All right, what do we got?
This one takes place in Winnipeg, Manitoba.
Okay, closer to home.
Yeah, so there's this man,
Uh-huh.
and they're trying to figure out who he is,
Okay.
but they're having trouble.
Why is that?
Well, he's got 3 different passports.
Whoa!
Yeah, and 3 different names.
So like a triple identity?
Pretty much.
That's pretty sophisticated.
Yeah.
Like, how do you even pull that off?
I don't know.
Must have taken a lot of planning and
Yeah.
a lot of resources.
And the document specifically mentions issues of national security.
Okay, so this isn't just some guy trying to avoid parking tickets.
Boy, this is serious stuff.
Yeah.
And they think he might be connected to prisoner reintegration.
So maybe he's trying to start a new life.
Yeah.
But he's got some skeletons in his closet.
Possibly.
Yeah.
So this case raises some big questions about how we track people.
Right, like in this age of globalization.
Yeah, people can move around so easily.
It's hard to keep tabs on everyone.
Exactly. And this case shows how someone can slip through the cracks.
Yeah, especially if they're determined to.
Okay, so the third case is a little different.
Okay, tell me about it.
This one's all about finance and currency.
All right, money talks.
And this one spans from 2016 to 2017.
Oh, okay.
And it involves WhatsApp, multiple passports,
Of course.
Netherlands,
Okay.
Beverly Hills, USA.
And the
UK.
But this person gets around.
They do.
Yeah.
And their voice apparently didn't match expectations.
What do you mean?
Well, they were described as a Caucasian male,
Okay.
stationed in Sharjah.
In the UAE.
Right.
Okay.
Involved in offshore oil trade.
So high stakes,
Yeah.
big money.
But their voice was described as having a Nigerian African accent.
So another voice mismatch.
Yeah, it's like the first case
It is.
where the voice didn't match what they were expecting.
I wonder what that's all about.
It's really strange.
It is.
And they don't really offer any explanation in the document.
So we're left to speculate.
Exactly.
Okay, well, let's speculate.
Okay.
So what are the possibilities?
Well, I mean, it could be deliberate deception.
Okay, so they're intentionally trying to mislead people.
Yeah.
Like maybe they're using a fake accent?
Yeah. Or maybe they're using some kind of voice alteration technology.
Oh, that's a good point.
Right.
Like we've seen that in movies.
Yeah, it's not that far-fetched.
No, it's not.
Or maybe it's just a simple misinterpretation.
Oh, okay.
Like maybe the person who recorded this information
Yeah.
just made a mistake.
Yeah, it's possible.
Or maybe they let their own biases influence their perception.
Oh, that's a good point.
Right, like maybe they just assumed that a Caucasian male
Yeah.
wouldn't have a certain type of accent.
And that's how stereotypes work. They
Exactly.
can cloud our judgment and
Yeah.
lead us to make false assumptions.
So we don't really know what's going on with these voice mismatches,
We don't.
but it's definitely something to think about,
It is.
especially in the context of security and intelligence.
Yeah, because if you can't even trust your own perceptions,
Right.
then what can you trust?
Okay, so this third case also brings up the issue of market manipulation.
Oh, right. Because this person is involved in offshore oil trade.
Yeah, and they're potentially influencing prices.
Which can have a huge impact on the global economy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it just shows how these seemingly isolated cases can have far-reaching consequences.
Absolutely.
All right, so the next case is even more random.
Okay, hit me.
So someone's LinkedIn account gets hacked,
Oh, man, that's the worst.
and they get contacted by someone with an Indian Asian subcontinental accent.
Okay.
And this person is dealing with some cultural integration issues.
Oh, that's tough.
Yeah,
Trying to adjust to a new culture,
right.
it can be really challenging.
Especially when you're also dealing with a hacked LinkedIn account.
Right.
So this person is feeling lost and alone,
Yeah.
and they end up taking out their frustration on some cars.
Oh, no. What did they do?
They sprayed them with fire extinguishers.
Okay, so like youthful vandalism,
Yeah,
not great, but not exactly a national security threat.
right.
So why is ABCIQ involved?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I mean, it's possible that they were just trying to be helpful.
Okay.
This person reached out to them.
Yeah.
Maybe they felt sorry for them.
Maybe.
Or maybe they saw this as a potential security risk.
Okay.
This person is clearly vulnerable,
Right.
and they could be exploited by someone with bad intentions.
That's true.
So maybe ADCIQ was just trying to keep an eye on the situation.
Okay. That makes sense.
But the advice they gave was just to contact the RCMP.
So like pass the buck.
Pretty much.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. What else do we have?
So there's a brief mention of a UN surgeon in Syria
Okay.
who needed assistance,
Makes sense.
but they couldn't help
Why not?
because of technology limitations.
Oh, wow. So they had the resources.
Yeah.
They had the manpower,
Yeah.
but they were thwarted by technology.
It's kind of ironic.
It is.
We think of technology as this great enabler,
Right.
but sometimes it can be a barrier.
Especially in conflict zones.
Right, where infrastructure is often damaged or destroyed.
Yeah. So it's a reminder that even with the best intentions,
Yeah.
we can't always overcome these logistical challenges.
Okay, so the fifth case is a big one.
Okay, lay it on me.
The diplomatic embargo of Qatar.
Oh, wow. That was a major event.
It was.
Yeah.
And this brings in Media Codes Al Jazeera.
Okay, so we're talking about information warfare,
Yeah.
propaganda.
Exactly,
Yeah.
all of that.
Yeah.
And there's this fact fiction check
Okay.
involving a ton of codes,
Like how many are we talking?
61 sets of codes, between March and May 2019.
So they were really monitoring the situation closely.
They were.
Yeah.
And they even suspected a connection to Iranian atomic weapons.
Okay, so now we're talking about WMDs.
Yeah.
This is getting serious.
It is.
Yeah.
And they also mentioned possible Russian UAE involvement.
Oh, wow. So
Yeah.
a lot of players on the field.
Yeah, it's like a geopolitical chess match.
It is.
But it's all happening in the shadows,
right.
behind closed doors.
Yeah, we're only getting glimpses of what's really going on.
Exactly. And then there's this cryptic mention of naval proliferation, weather-related disaster.
That's intriguing.
It is.
Yeah.
It's like they're hinting at something.
But they're not giving us the full story. Like
Right.
maybe they don't even know the full story themselves.
That's possible.
Yeah.
Or maybe they're just not allowed to tell us.
Right. Top secret classified information.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we're left to fill in the blanks.
Okay, so throughout all these cases,
Yeah.
ABCIQ is having their own tech troubles. Yeah. It's kind of funny.
It is kind of ironic.
Yeah, like they're this big security organization,
Right.
and they can't even keep their own system secure.
I mean, it just shows,
Yeah,
no one is immune to these threats.
exactly.
Yeah.
So they had hacked social media accounts,
Okay.
a BlackBerry hack from 2012.
Oh, that's ancient history.
I know.
Yeah.
A Samsung tablet that wouldn't work,
Mm-hmm.
and stalled web handles.
So like their whole digital infrastructure was compromised.
Pretty much.
Yeah, that's a nightmare.
It is.
Especially for an organization like that,
Yeah.
where they rely on technology so heavily.
But it's not all doom and gloom.
Oh, there's hope.
Yeah, so they start talking about solutions.
Okay, let's hear it.
And they introduce this concept of solutions IQ blockchain technologies.
Oh, wow. So they're looking at blockchain.
They are.
That's interesting
Right, yeah.
because blockchain is all about decentralization
Right.
and immutability.
Exactly.
So it's like a way to create a more secure and transparent system where there's no single point of failure,
Exactly.
which is exactly what they were struggling with.
Right.
So it makes sense that they would be interested in blockchain.
And then they start brainstorming all these other ideas.
Oh, yeah, like, whoa.
Hologram bars.
Okay, so like futuristic bars
I guess so.
with holographic bartenders?
Maybe.
That's cool.
Temperature-controlled vending machines for pharmacies and groceries.
So like you can get your prescriptions and your snacks all in one place.
24/7.
That's convenient.
AI facial retina recognition for safety.
Okay, so like super high-tech security.
Yeah.
That's kind of Big Brother-ish.
It is, a little bit.
Yeah, but I guess it could also be used for good.
Right, like preventing crime
Yeah,
or identifying criminals.
exactly.
They don't talk about sovereign spaces with warning systems.
What does that even mean?
I'm not really sure.
Like a gated community on steroids?
Maybe.
With like laser beams and motion sensors?
Yeah, something like that.
That's intense.
It is.
Yeah.
And they also mention unarmed security
Okay,
in various locations.
So like security guards.
But without guns.
Right.
And technologies for mental and emotional health and climate change.
So they're thinking about the big picture.
They are.
Yeah.
It's like they're trying to solve all the world's problems.
That's ambitious.
It is.
Yeah.
But I guess that's what they do.
Right. They're in the business of security and intelligence.
And they're clearly not afraid to think outside the box.
No, they're not.
Okay, so there's more.
Oh, there's more.
Yeah, so they talk about color integration technologies.
Okay, what's that all about?
Well, it's for video, audio, data transmission,
Okay.
payment processors,
Hmm?
rural EM, that's GPS signs.
So like making sure that emergency services can find people.
Yeah, especially in remote areas.
That's important.
Hologram visual boards with satellite transmissions.
Okay, so like holographic billboards.
Yeah, but transmitting from space.
That's wild.
And multilingual TV IQ skills, on-demand education.
So like educational programming.
Yeah, but in multiple languages.
That's great.
Yeah, and available whenever you need it.
So they're really trying to make education accessible to everyone.
They are.
That's commendable.
And then they get into preparedness systems.
Okay, like what?
Solar, wind, water, EMS.
So like renewable energy sources for emergency situations?
Exactly. Yeah. Shared Hellfire Brigade support.
So like pooling resources
Yeah.
to make sure that everyone has access to essential
With
services.
galvanized roofing
Okay.
and emergency preparedness equipment.
So like being ready for anything.
Exactly.
That's the Boy Scout motto.
Be prepared.
Exactly.
And throughout this whole section,
Yeah.
they keep mentioning this phrase.
Oh yeah, what is it?
Defense science applied energy logic model assessment.
That's a mouthful.
It is.
Yeah.
But it seems like it's their guiding principle.
Okay, so like their framework for problem solving.
Yeah.
So they're looking at problems through the lens of defense science, applied energy, and logic model assessment.
And logic model is basically a way to map out
Yeah.
how you're going to achieve your goals.
Right, so it's like a roadmap.
Exactly.
Okay, so they're being very systematic in their approach,
They are.
which makes sense given the nature of their work.
Okay, so that was a lot of information
What?
about the ABCIQ cases.
Yeah, we went deep,
We did.
but it was fascinating.
It was.
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's switch gears completely
All right, time for something completely different?
and talk about this question period leaders debate.
Okay, let's hear it.
So it features this woman named Shelley D. Churchmuch,
Okay.
and she's a culture systems analyst.
That's an interesting title.
It is.
Yeah.
And she's got expertise in political social science and mind science positive psychology.
So she's like a multidisciplinary thinker.
Yeah, she's coming at these issues from a lot of different
Oh,
angles.
which is great
Yeah.
because we need more of that.
And her very first question is about simultaneous debates
Okay.
in federal and provincial houses to try to find solutions to problems.
So she's talking about collaboration between different levels of government.
Exactly.
Which is a great idea.
It is.
Yeah, because so often these different levels of government are working in silos.
Right.
And that's not efficient.
No.
So I like where she's going with this.
And then she just jumps right into these really deep questions.
Okay, like what?
Can you really teach free speech in societies that aren't free?
That's a good question.
Right.
Yeah, because freedom of speech is kind of a cornerstone of democracy.
Exactly.
So if you're living in a society where you can't speak your mind freely,
Yeah.
then how can you truly understand the concept of free speech?
And then she asks about foreign policy
Okay.
and what the real vision is
Yeah.
beyond just resorting to war.
Right. Like, why is war always the answer?
Yeah, it's such a costly solution.
In terms of human life,
Yeah.
and resources.
And it rarely solves the underlying problems.
Exactly.
So she's really challenging the status quo.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to have those voices.
It is.
People who are willing to question the way things are done.
Exactly.
Because if we don't question things,
Yeah.
then things will never change.
And then she brings up the UN veto power.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
It is.
Yeah, because it basically gives a handful of countries the ability to block any decision.
Even if the majority of countries agree.
Exactly. So it's kind of undemocratic.
It is.
Yeah.
And she asks why these countries should have so much power.
Right. Like, why should they get to override everyone else?
But she also talks about her own personal experiences.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about that.
So she lived in a region where there were all these restrictive laws.
Like what?
Well, she couldn't eat bacon. And she had to be careful about having a single man in the house.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that?
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's just one of those weird rules.
Okay.
And she couldn't drink alcohol.
Oh, wow.
And she couldn't be pregnant outside of marriage. So like a lot of restrictions on personal freedom.
Yeah, and she had to pay VAT.
On value-added tax.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, but she couldn't vote.
Whoa, so taxation without representation?
Exactly.
That's not.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
And it really makes you think.
It does.
About what freedom actually means.
Yeah, because it's easy to take our freedoms for granted. But there are a lot of people in the world who don't have those same freedoms.
And then she starts talking about the media.
Okay.
And whether it's really free.
Good question.
Right, because governments and big tech companies have so much control over information.
Exactly. They can censor what we see and hear.
Yeah.
And they can promote their own agendas.
And she points out how the way we define things, like freedom fighter and suicide bomber, is totally subjective.
It depends on who's telling the story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then she gives this example of Snow White being banned in some countries.
Really?
Yeah. Because she lived with 7 men.
Oh, wow. So like a morality issue.
Yeah, I guess so.
Interesting.
And she also talks about economic exploitation.
Okay.
And how countries that have been historically exploited have lost so much.
In terms of resources and knowledge.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And she asks, where's the compensation for that?
Right. Like, who's going to pay for all that lost potential?
Yeah. And then she compares the budgets for things like education and welfare to the resources that go through international financial institutions.
So like the IMF and the World Bank.
Right. And she questions whether the current economic model is actually sustainable.
Yeah, because it seems like the rich keep getting richer.
Yeah.
And the poor keep getting poorer.
And then she talks about education.
Okay.
And how can we expect students to compete in the global job market if our education systems aren't properly funded?
Right. Because education is the key to success.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And she also talks about how we teach equality when our society is so focused on categorizing and dividing.